In this video, I'd like to review what you should be doing if you feel wrist pain or elbow pain, which could be tendinitis or tennis elbow. Basically, you have to understand that the wrist muscles that cause the lateral epicondylitis, i.e. the tennis elbow, are strained by four things. Thing number one, when you extend the wrist, they're called wrist extensors. Thing number two, when you pronate your wrist. Thing number three, ulnar deviation. Yeah, it's not, the radial deviation is not better, by the way, although it's on the other side. This will affect here, that will affect here. And last but not least, gripping strongly with your hands. This is because, if the wrist muscles would not be active, under the action of the hand flexors, your wrist will bend. So basically, when you tighten your fingers, the wrist extensors become active to keep your wrist straight. So basically, we have to identify every situation in which any or more of these four factors are present. In addition to this, we have to look for every situation in which the neck is tense. The reason for that is twofold. On the one hand, there's a number of neck pain that can be radiating to the arm. So pain that you feel in the arm may actually be arising from your neck. That's reason one. Reason number two is if you look at the cardiovascular system, you have your lungs here, and basically the blood that supplies your arms goes through your neck and down to your arms. So you see, if you have tension in your neck, you have compressions, and that's like having rocks in the river. If you have rocks in the river, there's less water flowing downstream. Well, same with your blood. If you have neck strain here, there's less blood arriving to your arms, which will therefore become painful earlier. Why is this called tennis elbow? Because many people who play tennis tend to have the combination of all the strengths. They hold the racket, they extend the wrist, and they usually have a lateral deviation here. So typically, tennis players will have it here. But not only, because actually, if you look at the way most people use the mouse with their wrist on the table. And as their wrist is on the table, well, of course, there's direct pressure on the table on the carpal tunnel, which is not great, but there's also wrist extension. There's finger movements to click or to use the scroll wheel. That's why I hate the scroll wheel. And you have the radial ulnar deviation, because as your wrist is on the table, well, your elbow cannot do the movement, the lateral movement of the mouse. So as your elbow cannot do the lateral movement of the mouse, then the wrist has to do the job. So you see, all in all, we have the four strains on the wrist. We have pronation, because it's a traditional mouse. We have extension, because your wrist is on the table. We have finger flexion, because you activate the buttons and you play with the scroll wheel. And we have ulnar radial deviation, because your elbow isn't free to move. What are your solutions? Well, take them by order of simplicity. You may want to use a mouse wrist rest. It will help you reduce extension, but by experience, many people still stay on the wrist rest and keep moving their wrist sideways. So by experience, mouse wrist rest may help, but not always. The next solution is to use a vertical mouse, because with the vertical mouse, well, I have less extension, doesn't mean no extension, and sometimes I catch myself using this mouse with a bit of wrist extension, but it's usually less. You have no more pronation, okay? But still, and of course you have no ulnar deviation. Still, you keep that movement, so be careful with the scroll wheel. Even if you have a vertical mouse, don't use it. Replace it with page up, page down. And this is my third line of defense, say. The third line of defense is learn keyboard shortcuts so that you need your mouse as little as possible. At the end of this video, I'm linking one to keyboard shortcuts. And basically, bear in mind that it is considered that using the mouse is 6 to 8 times as risky as using the keyboard. So if you master your keyboard, well, you reduce the strain on your wrist and forearm.